an ordinary train that travels on rails. Inside it is reported that the next station is Noryongjin, but since it's closed, the train simply won't stop. People drive there calmly, someone communicates, returning from work or study, someone continues to put on makeup, not even suspecting that something might go wrong. Meanwhile, someone in black shoes is walking further down the car. A man with a sword moves, catching the confused looks of ordinary passengers. He stops at a special button, which he presses. A voice inside the train immediately informs that the next stop is Noryongjin, repeating this several times until a red warning immediately lights up on special route designators. Everyone immediately became alarmed, not understanding what was happening, because they began to be indignant, breaking away from their affairs. The guy points his finger at the man in the suit, saying that for the first time he sees a hunter who goes to Noryongjin. His title is Metro Hunter Kangchul, a warrior by vocation and platinum by rank. But when he is about to leave, he is hailed by an old man who tells him that he is surprised by the fact that there is still such a reckless young man in Noryongjin. But it is better not to lose vigilance. The passenger pulls off his glove from his palm, showing his robotic limb. The terrible guy who deprived him of his arm is still alive. He and his comrades, the Silver Hunters, attacked the enemy together, but could not even harm them somehow and instead returned in this state. This is not a place for small children. Hall silently drills him with his gaze, clearly not going to answer, to which the old man only grins. Judging by other people's eyes, he already knows the hunter's answer. He also hopes that his determination does not come from arrogance, but skill. The door is open, and Kang raises his head to a horde of monsters that loom over him from some iron beams. The man gives them the same look before finally getting off the train, and the door is close behind him. 20 years ago, monsters of unknown origin began to appear all over the subway in Seoul, the capital of Korea. All passengers using the subway were killed. People call all metro stations inhabited by monsters dungeons. Already inside the station, he is met by a group of people near the gate, one of whom calls out to the man and asks him to stop. Hence the forbidden zone, and in front of it there is a place where boss monsters often appear. And it's not worth going further, since there must be a rank higher than gold for the passage, or a group of 4 people. Kang meets the other 3, the impregnable protector Lee Hwang, a holy knight with the rank of silver, who is clearly puzzled by the fact that the man is without armor. The Dandelion Master Na Hongseok, a wizard with the same rank, who says that he finally thought about creating a party, and the small-eyed archer Kim Jim-ho, a ranger with silver, who remains silent. The latter asks them to wait and approaches the man who appears and suggests creating a group so that everyone can capture a high-level dungeon and add it to the specification line in the resume. He proves that their team is already veterans, so this dungeon is a piece of cake for them. And you don't need to fight, you just need to enter your personal number. The knight is not particularly pleased with these and hurries to call out to him, but Jim immediately sets a condition. The trophy will be given to the one who defeats the boss monster. The hunter opens the door while the employee laughs nervously. They move inside. A level 3 walking dog immediately pounces on them, but the 3 act like a real team, so it's not difficult to deal with the monster that has appeared. Our hero absolutely does not care. He just watches how teenagers deal with other monsters. Hwang even shouts out that these bastards will be defeated with one shot. The magician, clearly fired up by this idea, immediately pulls out his staff, which instantly lights up, and he himself uses chain lightning, which strikes many dogs. However, this is not so effective. He wants to do everything in one touch. Behind him, another monster with scythes suddenly looms, which begins to growl, but immediately the protector stands up for him, fighting back with a shield. They quarrel for a moment, for Hong Seok is too scared to hunt without him. The ranger asks them to stop this business, because Hwang's shield will not allow the enemy to approach, and the wizard will use his magic to win while Kim himself will add enemies. That's what makes them the perfect team. The knight even calls out to the man, wanting to show off their group, but he just keeps silent and goes on, which makes the blonde immediately angry, because he told him not to take the initiative while the Dandelion Master calms him down. But soon Jim notices that something is wrong. The walking dogs they beat are not only running away from them. Call only notices that it smells like flames. A small dog runs down the stairs before he is overtaken by a huge paw, which pushes him into the ground. A giant walking dog of the 15th level comes across the eye. The warrior immediately rejoices, because he has been waiting for a meeting with the king of Noryongjin for so long. They just wanted to destroy the evil of the capital, especially since Lee Hwang reports that the dog can speak human, and if so, then he fulfills his dying wish. But everything that comes out of someone else's mouth, save me. At first he agrees, but then looks at the monster in surprise. He keeps begging for help, even drops his weapon, but some tile panel breaks, and a level 55 salamander appears from it, which devours the dog in an instant. The warrior immediately reports that he has never heard of such a thing, which is why Kim asks for a reference book. But there is nothing there since more than 10 years have passed. The knight decides to find out if they can do something. But no, this monster is a salamander, and this name was given 2 years ago at Bangbi Station. But even 4 golden hunters couldn't defeat her. Where could they go? Li Chuang orders them to forget about the victory completely, as they are going to go to Valhalla instead. But immediately the monster, as if hearing them, envelops the heroes with a bright fiery flame. But the mana shield that the magician used blocks his way. But literally in a second, he immediately crumbles into fragments, and they themselves are thrown back. The protector asks if all is well with his comrades, but Hong Seok responds negatively. This is not a monster that they can face right now, especially since he spent all his mana that he only managed to collect. But the monster begins to fill with flames again. Li Chuang immediately puts up a shield, telling his comrades that it's time for them to run away while he deals with this. They immediately start arguing, since no one wants to throw their friends to death while the salamander spews flames from its mouth. Shield warriors wear the most expensive equipment in the party, so his existence is designed to fight in the vanguard and protect his comrades. He's an unapproachable defender, Li Chuan, and he won't fall for anything, even if he dies. The guy squints, ready for the monster's attack. But nothing happens. Kang appears in front of him, who says that he is touched by his passionate pride and faith in friends. And on the other hand, the monster's flame is not hot at all. This is not the Fire Lord he was looking for. The salamander opens its mouth, growling at the hunter, before throwing up its head again and starting to heat up. The knight shouts to him that even more flames are coming now, but he just asks not to let go of the shield. The monster jerked its head up while Chul himself thrust his sword forward. As soon as the flame erupts, he manages to be near someone else's chest in time, cutting through the salamander along the bright strip. The stricken monster at first does not understand what is happening, and then roars again, and the hunter, preparing for another volley of fire, manages to dodge the next one. The man immediately begins to move as fast and sharply as possible, each time cutting someone else's flesh. 20 years ago, monsters of unknown origin began to appear all over the subway in Seoul, the capital of Korea. But do not worry, because in this terrible crisis there are saviors who will protect you. We call them Metro Hunters. There is an advertisement on TV in which a man asks the audience if they have ever managed to suffer from anything. But they will reimburse them for everything. We are shown a flashback where Kanu is about 20 years old. He advertises this very insurance company Tisan Life Hunter, where you can use services for 500,000 won. But the hunter does not even listen to him, and immediately says stop. Since the advertiser still hasn't entered the dungeon, he just can't talk to him about this. It's a place where people throw their lives away, so for that kind of money they can buy themselves a potion or something better. So, let him stop wasting his efforts here and sell it to people on Earth. 3 years have passed since the appearance of the dungeon. With the advent of hunters, new jobs began to emerge. Therefore, a high school graduate like him can work in such a large company. But this month, Kang received 0 points, because of which he was reprimanded by the head of the department, so that he would not think of returning without a contract. The guy brews himself some quick noodles to cook before he gets a call from Kang Seok. The reason he has to live a full life is his kind and intelligent younger brother, who is different from him. He boasts that he entered the Tisan Medical College. Hearing such good news, Call already has tears in his eyes. His only family. He has to take care of him to the end. The dream asks his forgiveness for the fact that the elder has to earn a living alone, and even apologizes for what is bothering him now. The younger one offers to have dinner together today. That's why the meeting is scheduled for 6 near Kan's work. The guy soon finds himself near the dungeon. For the sake of his brother, he decides to conduct business more aggressively, entering one of the dungeons and offering insurance services there. Inside, several hunters are already fighting monsters, while he himself manages to stick to some old man, offering insurance and a contract for 10 years. The man yells at him because he prevents him from working, but Call stands his ground, which is why the elderly man gives up and says he will sign if he leaves him alone during the battle. When the wolf monsters were finally killed, he signs the contract, as promised, saying that since there is a man in the dungeon in front of him, in a suit and with a pen, it means that he can be trusted. He tells them that he earns money for the family before his brother calls out to him. A little conflict ensues between them, because the younger one was worried about him because time had passed, and Mr. Gatekeeper told him that Hyun was here. The latter shouts at him because it was not worth going down to such a dangerous place. But after a minute they put up with tears and everything falls into place. But since they are still in the dungeon, a strange sound is heard from the darkness before a hook is thrown from there, which wraps around Junior's leg and drags him under the surprised gazes into the paws of the boss monster. But as soon as the monster sees that all his wolves have been chopped up by heroes, he squeezes the boy's neck while the remaining hounds attack the team. And although Hyun runs to his brother, wanting to save him as soon as possible, the owner of the dogs breaks Juice's neck without hesitation. The rationality of the brunette is turned off. He shouldn't have come here at all, to this dungeon. Immense regret mixed and turned into anger, and he, in turn, became fuel and shifted his body. He's disgusting. These monsters took away the meaning of his life. Call will tear, and crush him to take revenge until there is nothing left. All that remains of the battle is a memory in the form of a scar. Already in the present, the magician understands what kind of monster this is, but what is the use of this information if the one who killed her is standing right in front of them? H-Wang, who had been silent until that time, abruptly rises and goes to the man, asking if he knew that there could be such monsters. They could all have died. That's just Hyun points out to him that the knight only recently trembled with fear of the salamander, and is not afraid of the hunter at all. So why shouldn't he be more honest and start getting mad at someone? And he's right. Despite his weakness, the protector boasted and put his comrades in danger, and now he is angry at the one who saved them. Pathetic. They get out of the dungeon in which they defeated the salamander. On the way, they meet the dismantling Master Chan Hae-saw with a diamond level. The man is clearly eyeing the teenagers as his future customers before Chol calls out to him, noticing that he arrived too early. Hae-saw immediately shows the phone and says that as soon as the hunter contacted him, he started packing in a hurry. He pulls out his katana, about to start, but H-Wang instantly covers his path, not realizing who this person is until Kang stops him. They are disassemblers of monsters, that is, dismember them, skin them, and the like. And if the client does not need the materials, then they simply exchange them for money and transfer them to the client. The disassemblers immediately begin their work with the salamander. Meanwhile, the ranger and the magician report that they want to return home. But the first one will still look into this place, since they do not know many secrets. Hyun is about to leave, but he is stopped by Lee H-Wang, who remembers everything that happened and how it could have ended. And finally, having overcome himself, he shouts that he also wants to become strong, so much so that no enemy can defeat him, so that he can protect his comrades. The knight is tired of being weak. Meanwhile, the hunter remembers himself shouting the same phrases after his brother's death. The man turns to him and with a soft smile says that he will meet him next week at the Guido station, at the second exit. The blonde immediately rejoices at this news along with his comrades, before the LNI also come out of the dungeon. After 2 hours, a huge crowd of people appears near the monster's corpse. The man with the mustache laughs because he bought information about the location of this monster for 20 million won, and as a result, it was not the hostess who did it, but someone else. Because of this, he gets slapped in the face and flies away. The lady asks him to shut up and says that even though they don't know this person, they clearly need to be careful with him. Guildmaster Bing Bing with Platinum promises that Guren will take revenge 100 times harder for this. The guild consists of former prisoners who are engaged in selling people for their own purposes. Line 6, Samgakji Station, where the Guren Guild office is located. Some guy comes inside, the sight of which immediately alarms all those who are there. One of the prisoners immediately grabs his cleaver, saying that the boy clearly read the sign wrong. He points the blade at him and threatens that if he does not disappear, he will cut off his head. The Ghost Sword Path, a disassembler with the rank of Platinum, only laughs, saying that it will obviously hurt him. Of course, the red-haired man is unhappy, that's why he swings, intending to kill him, but Bing Bing stops this fight, because the newcomer is her guest. The locals immediately begin to whisper, doubting that this is the right person, especially since everyone thought that he retired and became a picker. But no. The guy sits down opposite the lady, who shoves fried gyoza into her mouth. The girl tells him that the salamander, her prey, was simply taken and stolen, despite the fact that the sword told her exactly the time of regeneration. But when she arrived, there were only corpses left, and some specialists finished dismantling them. He grins, assuming that she was just late, but it makes her so angry that the guild master just bangs his fist on the table, ordering silence, and the furniture breaks down altogether. She reports that this is the second time. After a while, the ghost sword realizes who the girl is talking to him about. How in general could this bastard get such high-level information faster? Bing Bing lost 3 VIPs because of this, which is why Guren's reputation was ruined. And how is Y going to compensate for this? He laughs, because if she had asked for money, she would not have called, which means she asks to sort out and remove the unknown. And this is the simplest and most fun request. 3 days have passed since the attack on the Noryongjin dungeon. There are only a few days left before the trio will meet with the master, and each of them has a lot of time. Hwang started his little training, Hong Seok went to pull out wisdom teeth, and the ranger determines the dungeon to lead the team. They need to get more information for the next attack in the Oviedo dungeon. He goes to the intelligence service of the Black Horn Guild, where Na Song-min, a ranger with gold, tells him about the dungeon they are going to go to. Nothing unusual, just a low level for beginners. The conquest is complete there. There aren't even elite monsters, let alone a boss. Is Mr. Suit really going to take them to this dungeon for a simple workout? I think not, because the salamander also appeared out of nowhere. Na Song-min also says that there is no reliable information about a man with a scar on his eye, in a suit and with a sword. But the teenager does not believe him, since the V-shaped ornament on the sword of their future teacher is a platinum level mark. So why is there not a single word about a hunter of such a high rank? Jin Ho is about to leave, as he no longer has the money to pay for the information, but he will definitely come again. And almost at the entrance, a senior ranger calls out to him, asking why not leave the party, because he has enough common sense to raise his level to gold. Moreover, there will be many advantages and their guild has already recommended it. But the guy asks a counter question. Will he be able to sacrifice himself in a near-death situation? The man thinks for a while before answering that he is sure that this will not happen, because he has a big family. But if it had happened, he would have run away first. Kim just grins, saying he would do the same. But he has someone on his side who will protect others, even at the cost of his life. So, he will not be able to accept someone else's offer for the sake of his comrades. And on line 7, at Cheolson Station, someone has been repairing a sword for several days, still not understanding what happened to it. The blacksmith Varvatos grumbles while Kang says that he killed a salamander with it, which is why the dwarf immediately calls him an idiot, and then asks what the flame of this monster was. Not as hot as some girls. The old man just grunts, saying that if he can't get rid of this ghost, it won't get any better, and then adds that it's time for the weapon to retire, as there is already a lot of blood on it. And although the sword is ideal for someone like a hunter, but if Chol continues to carry this type of weapon, then people can get hurt. That's just that he doesn't care, because he's not one of those who can have comrades at all, right? At the same time, Kim is already near his bike, talking to the magician along the way, asking about his health and saying that he wants to visit him. But at some point he is distracted, saying that the transport does not belong to him. The gray-haired man looks at the castle before he says that this is probably some kind of misunderstanding, because his sign is there. And as soon as he turns around, Y appears in front of him, who in an instant plunges a knife into the guy's shoulder. He screams in pain, asking who he is, and the ghost sword replies that he is just a murderer. The boy asks who the killer is, simultaneously grabbing a bicycle wheel, but Y does not answer him until Kim decides to act. He throws his bike at the freak, but he just cuts it in half, grinning madly. The ranger only frowns, which already attracts the ghost sword, which makes him bend slightly lower. When the killer made such movements, Jim immediately jumps off the spot and hits someone else's face with his knee, and then takes out a wand from somewhere, which immediately decomposes into several tears. The teenager uses the upper blow, causing damage to the blonde crown, which causes the latter to simply fall on the 5th point. The youngster says that he heard that there were hunters at the entrance to the dungeon, aimed at defenseless brethren. So, is he one of them? Substituting a knife under a 3-tiered baton, the sword says that he is not such a vile bandit, and then pushes someone else's weapon away from his head, so that after he hits the solar plexus with his foot, even after feeling his one blow, the ranger can confidently say that he is stronger than him. Y only raises his foot to step on the teenager, but immediately stops because he is sure that he stabbed him in the acupuncture point, which means that his body should be rigid and he should not move at all. But if Jim is still able to do it, then what happened to his shoulder? This arouses the killer's curiosity, so much so that Y cuts the boy's t-shirt and is surprised to notice something there. He immediately shouts, they say, why does a man need a bra? But no, it's just a bib worn by archers. Well, if that's the case, then we'll have to try to stab him in the other upper limb. But Kim grins, saying that he will not be able to satisfy someone else's curiosity, and then whistles loudly, which makes him wince, asking what he did. It's a finger whistle. If the ranger on the front line during the search in the dungeon was in danger, then this is a signal. And the fact that he just whistled is a signal for emergency help. And judging by Y's surprised look, he didn't know that this area was the base of the Ranger Guild. Therefore, the guild members will be here soon, and the killer will only become dead meat. The latter seems alarmed, even checks the street, but then anxiously reports that he does not think they will come. And when asked why, he just starts laughing loudly. Before the next moment, he uses his Room of Silence skill, which blocks sound with a wall of mana. The spreading mana will vibrate, and the blows on it will stop. A noise reduction technique that was created and applied to road murders. And this means that no matter how much the guy screams, only the ghost sword will hear him. And after the latter finds out at all that the youngster can't even see mana, which is why he calls him sloppy and says that he loses the mood to talk from this. So it's time to die. There is no sense in the fact that such a youngster would hunt a salamander, and he also needs to win both a magician and a knight. The guy, catching himself for the lives of his comrades, realizing that they are in danger, asks Y to stop, shouting that he knows before a knife blade was put to his throat. He immediately gives out that he knows where to find the hunter who killed the salamander in Noryongan. After that, we are shown Chan Hae-sa, who again finds himself in some kind of dungeon with his partners, noticing that this place looks like a terrible mountain hell with all these corpses and blood. Moving on, they feel terrifying mana, almost a feeling of instability and savagery of the beast, which means their client is nearby. Calling out to the hunter, the picker immediately notices that he has climbed quite far, but Kang notices that they came just in time. Time is more precious than diamonds, right? Who was he hunting this time? A man just strokes the fur of a dead burning bear of the 49th level, on which he sits. The brunette reminds of something that he asked for before Chan Hae gives the hero what he promised. A heat resistance drug created by processing the essence of a glacier. This is ideal for those hunters who are constantly in contact with fire-related monsters. Paul notices that it took him longer than usual, to which he replies that the Tison Guild monopolizes the hunting grounds on the glaciers, but he will find everything for his client. Hyun immediately swallows a black ball, after which he winces in pain. It looks like the accumulated lacerations come out immediately. Hae-sa notices that he forces himself more than usual, especially if he is going to retire and take those 3 as his students. But since it is customary not to ask unnecessary questions, the disassembler sends the hunter home. He also thinks that if the client manages to grow them well, maybe they will become not chickens, but phoenixes. Chicks raised by a wolf, an interesting story. Well, they should get to work anyway. Safety first. The sun is setting and night is approaching. Hunters, put the body down and get some sleep. He will come to you tomorrow. See you in the Avito dungeon. Guido stations. Paul is getting ready with all his might, tightening the bandages, while he remembers the blacksmith's warning that such supernatural things as his sword will one day lead to disaster. It is impossible to believe that a dwarf with such a high ego was talking about superstitions. He pulls out his sword from behind his back. That's what he understands best. Then he is hailed by the teenagers who appear, who immediately greet the teacher. The latter, noticing a backpack on H-Wang's back, immediately frowns, asking why he needs so much. He replies that this is a special preparation. Potions, food, first aid kit, sleeping bag. But the man literally immediately interrupts him, saying that the knights should leave everything behind, because they will carry only the equipment necessary for the battle. But he was collecting all night, which is why the magician is laughing at him, because he knew about it and slept all night. And only then Hyun sharply notices that one person from the company is missing. The Dandelion Master immediately shows him his phone, explaining that Kim wrote a message saying that he was ill and would not be able to come. Once everyone has gathered, it's time to start, which teenagers are incredibly happy about. The brunette pulls out a Metro identification card from his bosom, which he immediately brings to a special device, to which he confirms that he is a hunter. Once the procedure has been completed, the team moves on. Hong Seok is reading in a book about Guido's dungeon at this time. This is the habitat of devilish monsters. There is also a route that can be used as a training ground for both beginners and experts because of its diversity. But it also says that the hunters stopped coming here after it turned out that they did not get the prey. Li H-Wang says he understands, but he doesn't even see an ant. So why can't they get the trophy? The man replies that devils have no concept of death. They just return to the devil's world with their bodies. This is a place where no one can get something in material form. The knight is a little upset that he won't get anything, but Hyun reminds him in time why he is here, and then says that he will take them to the best warrior. Teenagers naturally get excited following their teacher. Deeper in the dungeon, they encounter low-level demon warriors with a large ego, Simon of the 5th level. The knight, of course, does not believe at all that these devils can be the best warriors, and they are not much different from the same stray dogs. But Kang immediately warns that they should not be underestimated. The Simons talk to each other about something, communicating only with the help of their name, before they get into line, resting the tips of the blades of the cleavers on the floor. One of the scarred devils steps forward, beckoning the boy to him with his finger. He immediately grins, not believing that such kids are challenging him, before throwing a mace on his shoulder, saying that he will make them regret that they did not attack him altogether. Simon tightens his grip on the weapon, and Lee suggests that he launch an attack. The monster immediately runs at him while the knight rests his shield on the floor. Simon swings the cleaver, and then uses the devil's sword technique, delivering a direct and sharp blow to the shield. Hwang, having blocked him, immediately rejoices in his small victory before hitting him with his mace, throwing him into the air. He can neither avoid nor block the attack, which means he is completely defenseless. The guy, without wasting time, strikes a powerful blow, immediately thinking that he is winning. But then his pupil narrows in surprise. The blow was blocked by Simon's horns, which literally crumbled in half. The two of them are on the ground again before the demon immediately rushes at him, wanting to strike a direct blow, and the blonde barely manages to dodge the sharp blade to the side while it crashed into the tile. And noticing that the opponent is a little stuck, he understands that this is his chance, because he immediately hits him with a mace, which causes the little body to fly away, remaining without weapons. Other demons immediately jump up to their fellow, while the protector immediately rejoices that he hit so accurately. That's why he turns to the teacher, informing him that he won, but he only repeats that they should not be underestimated, continuing to look forward. Turning his head, he notices that Simon is not going to give up, rising on trembling hands. The magician happily says that the friend has already won, because the opponent is unarmed, but the guy is silent before looking at the stuck weapon, which he immediately takes out and throws towards the devil. Grabbing his cleaver, Simon looks at him with the same surprise as everyone else before the knight orders him to attack him again. He literally throws himself at Hwang, again using a direct blow, but this time everything will be different. Lee takes a defensive stance, again exposing his shield, into which the demon crashes with a booming sound. The guy immediately presses him to the floor with his shield and raises his mace, saying that he will not be able to climb anymore, to which Simon only grins. Using a powerful route, he completely kills the demon in an instant. The demon chokes on his own blood under the serious gaze of the youngster, and then finally dissolves into thin air, disappearing. Call notices with a smile that the knight's fighting style is rude, but he has a great sense of combat. The Simons are just as surprised as the magician, while the guy asks if this won't stop them. The man immediately points in the direction of the monsters, who all became alarmed and lined up again, putting one forward. They will challenge him to the end until they recognize him as a warrior. Hwang informs the undead that they can challenge him as much as they want, because he will completely knock them down. The demon immediately yells his name before running to the boy and hitting his shield with his cleaver. Lee is breathing heavily, watching as another of Simon's bodies disappears into thin air again. Juice informs him that he has already managed to defeat about 10, thinking to himself that he has become stronger in such a short time. And did he always look so reliable? The blonde calls the next one, but instead the kids start talking to each other before the devil approaches him from the crowd, but with a white skin tone, immediately starting to speak. The guy immediately turns to the teacher, asking if they are trying to establish contact with him. Hyun reports that he is the reason that no one leaves this dungeon with trophies. If he can't communicate with him, he won't move on to the next stage, a kind of entrance barrier. It is necessary to communicate with the monster, which the protector is not very happy about, since he does not understand it at all. But Call says it's possible. The way these devils communicate is different from the way they talk. If he could only share his thoughts with them, then there would be an opportunity to cross this language barrier. Hwang, of course, does not understand what the teacher means. Call pulls something out of his bosom and hands him a special drink, saying that he will understand when he drinks. Hong Seok immediately warns that it could be dangerous, as he felt an ominous energy that could definitely make his friend's stomach ache. And even though he himself understands that it is clearly unsafe, he still does not care about it. Because, after all, he owes his life to the teacher, and the guy followed him to become stronger. As soon as Lee takes a few sips, his eyes immediately open and turn red, and he begins to cough himself. The taste of the drink was terrible, and then he asks what it is in general. The magician also notices the redness of his eyes, while the hunter with absolute calmness reports that it was the blood of a pure-blooded vampire. At first, the youngster laughs before he starts to panic. Does he really mean a unique monster that can turn anyone he bites into a bloodthirsty killer? True, but it's because of the infected blood. But after all, he just managed to drink this very liquid, so he will become a monster. The teacher immediately calms him down, saying that the curse has been lifted from her. Moreover, it is a purchase of rank B, which gives the drinker demonic power and lasts 24 hours. Even Hong Seok notices that high-level magic is required to remove the curse, which makes him not even believe that Call gave H. Wang something like that. He is clearly not an ordinary person. And at some point, the guy can finally understand the demon who says that he was lucky with the existence of the abyss after all. Surprised by the new interlocutor, Lee asks again if he is talking to him, to which he receives a positive answer. Simon reports that he himself cannot believe that their warriors were defeated by such a clumsy child. This is ridiculous. Pomlani immediately begins to be indignant, because he was struggling with his last strength. But the demon interrupts him, saying that at least the knight's heart is not clumsy. He is not a coward, he fought honestly and won all the battles. And how they, Simons, managed to prove his level, so they recognize him as a contender. It's just too early to rejoice, because this is just the key to opening the test. Is he ready for the next stage? The protector looks at the man for a moment, who nods, before grinning and announcing that he is completely ready. The monster snorts, saying he's just a guy with useless energy, but Simon takes him to the door anyway. Immediately, the heroes freeze in surprise while the rest of the demons run past, lining up on both sides and raising their weapons. But they are not going to attack, just standing in 2 rows and seeing off the heroes. The albino leads them to a dead end, which is why the knight is immediately going to be outraged, but he stops him. After all, despite the fact that Hvar was blessed with a high existence, he still thinks in a human body. Therefore, let him look at the amazing skill of the devil. Pressing his palms against the wall in a dead end, Simon begins to mutter something in an unknown language, until first a huge black portal appears in front of him, and then a giant door to the boss. The devil immediately warns that if he does not want to lose his life, then he eats to give up now. If H. Wang doesn't come into this room for this reason alone, it won't get any better than before. But there is one thing that makes him curious. The knight decides to ask the man why he started teaching someone who can't even earn money for him. But instead of an answer, he gets a condition. If he returns from there, he will find out. It wasn't. The guy opens the door, promising that he will return as a warrior. Inside there is a huge space with lava and large stone platforms, on one of which a large demon is sitting with his back to him, who asks if he is a contender. When a positive answer sounds, he immediately jumps off the column and in an instant is in front of the hero. He had been waiting for an applicant for a long time, but instead of him came some child who, it would seem, is not strong at all. The ground is shaking under his feet, but the teenager still finds the strength to object to the demon, which makes him grin and ask to prove his point of view. Amon Simon's evolutionary boy, level 20, stood in front of him in all its glory. They stand in front of each other before the demon says it's time to start and swings his huge golden cleaver. The sword is much bigger than the Simon's. His physical strength is simply absurd. He smears this thing with one hand. If H1 gets hit directly, he will definitely become a dead man. If so, he won't block. With the help of his shield, he redirects someone else's blow. The knight immediately shouts that now Amon will pay for waving his weapon at random. He makes a powerful attack, hitting the monster with a mace in the side. After this, it should even be difficult for him to breathe, but nothing like that happens. The devil just looks at him and says it's time to teach him a lesson about how it really is, not being able to breathe. The monster just swings his fist, which falls on the solar plexus. The guy flies off a few meters and is driven into the wall. From such a blow, blood immediately gushed out of his mouth. Part of the column collapses from above, falling into the lava and completely burning there. Amon also goes to him, saying that he is not a warrior at all, winding his fist in his direction. And even though Lee understands that he needs to get up, but he doesn't even have enough strength to lift the shield. The demon continues, the boy is not worthy of him fighting with a sword, well, a worm. A fist flies into his face while he keeps talking about the protector begging for mercy. He is the same as the other contenders who dropped their weapons and ran away. H. Wang, although unable to dodge the blows, being beaten says that he absolutely does not care since he is not a worm. How unfortunate. The monster swings again, intending to punch him in the face. Have you ever thought that life is boring? And he feels it every damn day. Studying is boring, and there is nothing else to do. His life is in a jam, just like these cars. Does he have any talents, you ask? At school, bullies accost him because he ignored the teacher's greeting, which caused the reputation of the class to suffer. So, he inherited from his father excellent athletic qualities and the worst character. At the same time, he is wasting his time. No matter how much he swings his fists, he does not feel satisfied. Is it normal to live so aimlessly? It's boring and annoying. It's as if longing is about to tear his heart apart. And for the umpteenth time, he rides in a subway car before the invincible sun, Bomsu back. The holy knight with gold falls into it with a roar and explosion. The man calls out to Hwang and asks him to hand over his sword and shield. And as soon as the guy gives him everything, he soon refuses the latter because he does not think he can hold him with one hand. The brunette also thanks the blonde, but advises to get out of here while he does what he has to. He reports that monsters will come here soon, so everyone should evacuate. The people immediately panic and run away. And even though Beck is not in the best shape, he will still stand until the end. A Cyclops of the 34th level passes inside. Today is definitely a day of shame for the son, since he let the monster into the carriage. Also, Bomsu is at the limit of his strength, both physical and moral, so he will have to stop someone else's club without a shield. He must concentrate. And the best defense is a desperate attack. That's just a huge monster easily breaks the sword with his club. He screwed up, but at least he was able to save people. The baton flies on the approach to kill the man, but the blow manages to repel Lee, who grabbed the shield in time and managed to block the attack. And thanks to this, Bomsu has a great chance to deal with the Cyclops, which he uses by attacking a busy monster with a dissecting blade. When that was over, the son says that Hwang is very brave for his age. Where did he get such courage from? But he replies that the body moved by itself. The man says that he has a talent and offers to become a hunter. On the battlefield, where he had to face death for the first time, his heart was beating so fast. And of course, he agrees with boxing. He is the one who stands on the front line to defend. A warrior with a shield. Hwang Lee. In the present, there is no impact. The demon's body, as well as the entire environment, turned sharply gray and no action took place. Time seems to have frozen. But how? And all because he summoned her. Out of nowhere, a black portal is formed, from which someone's clawed hand stretches and scarlet pupils gape. But abruptly, a statuesque woman comes out of the portal, who explains that time has not stopped, but simply flows very slowly, so much so that the protector does not even realize that it is moving. But who is she? It turns out that the blood he drank recently was hers. The guy asks his aunt if she is a vampire, to which he receives a positive answer. Zyfri is a pure-blooded vampire and a high-class demon with rank 9. She immediately guesses who gave him the blood, since Call himself would not have dared to drink. And after that, when the teenager asks if they are comrades, the vampire becomes enraged at all, so she and this primitive brute certainly can't be them. Zyfri explains her arrival by saying that it was Lee who called her, even though he did nothing. Just a drop of her blood is enough to infect hundreds of people, and he drank quite a lot of it. Thanks to this, she could hear his heartbeat all the way from the demon world. The blood connection transcends all 5 senses, and his emotions are on the verge of death and called the vampire here. It turns out that the teacher meant it when he said that he would drink and understand everything himself. Zyfri turns out to be near his ear and reminds him that time has not stopped. It flows very, very slowly, so much so that he doesn't even notice it, and Ammon's fist is getting closer and closer. If this blow catches up with him, it will blow the boy's head to pieces. The protector shouts at her not to say such things as something cute, and he promised himself that he would become stronger. She immediately rushes to calm him down, because she is here to save Lee, because she took an oath, and which one, it is worth asking Kang. She abruptly stretches out her palm and pierces it into the boy's chest, and while he is shocked and begins to be indignant, the girl asks him to be quieter, since it is necessary to concentrate. Under the beating of someone else's heart, Zyfri quickly finds his target, something black that pulls out of the main pump of the whole organism. The vampire pulled out a jam that blocks the circulation of mana. He would have been able to cope with it himself thanks to training, but in 10 years. Now Hwang can see mana, a blue wavering aura on someone else's fingers, which instantly dissolve the same shutter. And if a guy can at least contemplate it, then there is still a drop of talent in him. All creatures exude mana, and mana is everywhere. If Lee is able to see it, then he should feel his own. Indeed, now his body exudes a bright blue aura, and he himself feels the boundless power that comes from within. But Zyfri reports that she helped with what she could, and the test of a warrior is a holy ritual. She may be a high-class demon, but she can't interfere anymore. In his current state, he should easily be able to dodge the fist. Also, the girl reminds that it is worth hurrying, because the time that she was holding back is returning to its usual course. The knight says with confidence that he can do it, especially since he himself feels his strength returning to him. Let him live, despite fate and death. Before leaving, she asks to tell Call that she, Zyfri, no longer owes him, and therefore, at their next meeting, she will take his life altogether, and then the vampire disappears into thin air, disappearing from sight. At the same moment, the colors begin to return. The guy understands that he should focus on movement, so he bends his leg at the knee, clenches his teeth until his own blood, and then orders himself to move. Time has returned to its former rhythm, and this time he manages to avoid a lethal blow, which is why the demon's fist only breaks a stone column. The opponent, being surprised, looks at the boy who dodged sideways, asking how it happened. And he himself does not know. But one thing Wang knows for sure, this time he is 10 times stronger than a second ago. The mace strike again falls on the very side of Ammon. Outside the door, the wizard not only flinches from a loud bang, but also immediately feels a new aura, which is why he immediately asks the man, "Is it really a knight?" Call responds positively, to which Hong Xiak is surprised, because his friend is no magician, so how did he do it? Kang replies that mana is not some kind of battery that is used exclusively for magic. The Dandelion Master himself knows. How do hunters who train in dungeons get physical strength that exceeds human strength by many times? This is because they are unknowingly exposed to the dungeon's mana. When someone overcomes the limit of their strength, then it can be considered a passage through the point of awakening, after which you can not feel and see what, but already control mana. And even though the warrior mined a few steps, he still passed through this point. Simon is immediately outraged, calling the man a cruel bastard who reveals the boy's potential using a curse. He's just playing with his student's life. He just grins, because it's nice to see a demon worrying about a person's life, to which the albino only grumbles. Hyun advises him to just wait a bit. The flame that has just flared up cannot be extinguished just like that. The Dandelion Master, agreeing with this statement in his head, then shouts at the closed door for his idiot friend to come back. Otherwise he will beat him as much as he made him worry. Inside, Ammon himself notices the changes, calling it an awakening. But the boy angers him more when he begins to say that the demon is even more pathetic, since he boasted and used his mana before. The devil is almost growling, since Wang has just woken up, and already says something so audacious. Nothing has changed. Ammon will win and he will lose. The guy directs the mace towards the rising opponent, saying that you can never know for sure, especially now they are on equal terms. The opponent yells that this is complete nonsense, and then expresses a desire to demonstrate to him the mind-boggling difference in their abilities. Ammon swings, adding the color of his mana to the weapon, but the blow falls on the shield. Blue and purple mana collide. The real battle is just coming. Meanwhile, Y is at the same station, calmly walking down the stairs before running into the Simons. They are clearly going to give him the same test, but the ghost sword just grins. From the frightening look of the demon that stood in front of him, he only wants to make fun of the baby more, but he pulls out his knife from behind his side, instantly cutting the body in half in front of him. He's not up to it today. The demons immediately begin to rebel while someone else's weapon is filled with bright green mana. He doesn't have time to play with this small fish, which is why the Simons, one by one, die from a sharp blade that crumbles them indiscriminately. The knight and the devil are fighting for life and death. Guns almost constantly collide with each other, leaving behind only a trace of dissipating mana, which shines brightly on the battlefield, but no one is going to give up. The cleaver collides with the mace again, before Ammon swings again, and the guy, having noticed it, immediately puts his shield under attack. Blow after blow, block after block, but at some point the opponent swings already from the side, which makes Wang immediately raise his weapon. But the opponent grabs the mace with one hand, while the other still squeezes the cleaver. Their intense gazes collide with each other. Ammon shamelessly says that the protector does not have a single chance to stand against him in brute force, to which the latter only grins. There is power, there is no need for intelligence. It turns out that the devil does not use his head at all. The latter, clearly not expecting such audacity, even asks again, but Wang, seeing such an opportunity, decides to bump heads with him in the literal sense, which causes the opponent to fall back, but then immediately assumes a standing position again before yelling that he accepts his challenge, and then also knocks in response. Because of then the subsequent battle takes place only with heads. Again, blow after blow, collisions of one powerful forehead with another. But at some point Ammon stops, admitting that the boy's head is strong, apparently from lack of brains. He just grunts, blowing out another portion of blood from his nose, before barely straightens up and with a smile informs him that this is not the first time he has been told about this. The devil, grinning, says that Hwang is the most reckless pretender he could ever see in his entire existence. Lee answers, they say, it doesn't matter how to fight, the main thing is to be strong enough for this, right? But judging by the look of the demon, he is completely wrong. Which is why Ammon says that the guy clearly does not understand something, because he is nothing more than a worm who has learned to spit mana. And although the latter is outraged, because the devil again called him a worm, Ammon himself puts his hand with an axe forward, telling him to look carefully until it immediately begins to envelop with a stream of purple mana. He will definitely show him the strength of someone who knows how to control mana. And his mana is so powerful that the warrior himself feels a shiver go through his whole body. And it was clearly not just a show-off. The undead are going to attack him in this way. So, you need to stay calm. You just have to do as he was taught. Make an emphasis with your foot, take a defensive stance to minimize damage, and hold the shield with both hands. And as soon as the guy performs these actions, Ammon, as if by order, in an instant uses the demonic sword art, making a straight cut, while the guy follows the shield art, the shape of a turtle. The blow, of course, falls on the shield. And even though the boy is trying to stand on his feet, restraining his shield, but the power of the devil was so strong that the shield given to Bonsu, with a huge cut, just flies up, and then landed behind the boy's back. The devil taunts him, saying that he will no longer be able to use his shield. And how does he plan to fight then? Was it worth just looking at your subject of protection, as he immediately changes his face? He frowns, grins, and then blurts out that Ammon has just made a serious mistake, since this shield was especially important to him. But if that's the case, then he should have taken better care of him, right? The protector calls him a freak and threatens to do the same to him. The demon continues to laugh, because this is the nonsense of some gray mare. The guy is wondering how he did it, that cracking thing when the mana sparkled. Ammon rolls his eyes, saying that this is generally an amateurish description. Even if he tells him, does the knight really think what will be able to repeat? Hwang was just lucky to wake up. Realizing that he won't tell him, he decides to try it himself, pulling his mace forward. And as if by order, the mace in his hand begins to flicker as well as the recent golden cleaver in the demon's hand, which makes the latter immediately look surprised. How did he do it? But literally in a second all the mana dissolves, which is why the guy just says that it didn't work out after all. And Ammon meanwhile screams that he surprised him. The blonde grins, asking if he managed to scare him, to which, of course, he receives a negative answer. Fine control is still a bit difficult for him, so he will just give his all, as usual. As usual, the demon is interested. Lee just shouts out full mana release, because of which his body immediately begins to exude the same blue aura, which instantly entwines all his limbs and himself, which is why the devil is just in shock. If he can't control it, he'll just release whatever he can. He can't lose. Hwang promised to become stronger. Then there is a loud collision. Outside. Before that, the heroes with Simon were calmly standing, waiting for their friend. But then the doors open abruptly, which Hong Seok immediately notices, and Kang simply reports that, apparently, the fight is over. The teenager immediately runs inside, calling his friend while he is standing in the same arena, looking at the body of the demon, which is sprawled on the ground. The knight, hearing his name, immediately turns to the others as soon as they are nearby. The Dandelion Master asks if he has finished the test, to which the protector responds positively, while behind his back Ammon's body dissolves into purple smoke. The magician immediately threatens him with his fist, shouting that he thought he had already died, but the youngster only asks him not to beat him, because he does not have the strength to get up. Hyun just looks at his student, smiling gently. But while they are chatting calmly, someone's palm grabs the door, and Y's face looms out of the darkness with a crazy smile. Found. The heroes are standing next to Hwang, who is breathing heavily and clearly unable to move, continuing to chat. The magician immediately grabs him by the shoulders, starting to shake him and saying that it's time for them to go back. But he just can't. He was too tired. The blonde leans back, crashing to the ground with a slap, and asking if he can lie down here and take a nap, which is why Hong Seok, being worried, decides to ask their teacher's permission whether they should leave their friend in this state at all. He immediately refuses, saying that it is a mana shock, and if it happens that he falls asleep, then Lee may even die from lack of mana. At first, the Dandelion Master with a smile continues to urge the protector to get up, continuing to chatter that it's time for them to go. but then immediately panics, immediately looking at the man in surprise. To die. Fortunately, the guy immediately calms him down, saying that if he turns out to be in danger, then Zyfri will come to save him. But as soon as Wang says no, he literally jumps off the spot, and for such a question he gets a fist on the top of his head and the title of a fool. Such an overly powerful ability is not even capable of existing. Blood redemption is a one-time opportunity, and he has already used it. He only mumbles that it's stingy before leaning back, which makes Hong Seok immediately start to panic again. But Kang quickly calms him down, saying that the warrior will feel much better if he drinks a mana potion and gets some rest. After hearing about the potion, the magician immediately caught himself, taking off his bag before taking out one of these. The flask is a mana restorer made from condensed mana. It can be bought at a pharmacy for hunters without a prescription. The boy immediately pours it into his friend's mouth before Kang looks around somewhere, and noticing something, puts his hand on the teenager's shoulder, advising him to rest. And when asked where he is, the man only answers that they have guests, and he should be given a warm welcome. He asks again, but at some point, the silhouette of Y turns out to be near someone else's back, whose knife instantly moves towards Kang's body, and then sticks into the blade of a huge sword. The teacher calmly asks who he is, to which the ghost sword only giggles and informs him that he is just a murderer. Bouncing aside, he wonders how the opponent managed to block, because the gray-haired man himself completely hid his presence and sounds. But he was betrayed by a strong thirst for murder, which is simply impossible not to feel. The mercenary just grins, twirling his knife in his hand before asking if the hunter himself is hiding his strength. A small conversation ensues between them, since Y loves his job too much. That's why he is so talkative, during which Kang tells that he has made a lot of enemies, but there are no cowardly ones among them who would dare to hire someone. Y immediately stops him, saying that it is a red light, and refuses to speak, as this is utter ignorance. Hyun decides that they should not waste time then, to which the killer immediately agrees, and then immediately disappears from sight, again being behind, saying that this way he will even be able to finish the work on time. But as soon as the blade is about to cut through the air several times, the brunette crouches, dodging the blow, and then is about to strike his own, only the ghost sword successfully blocks it with his blade. He gets out of sight again, jumping into the air, which causes the hunter to pierce the air with the blade of his sword, but in an instant turns around, saying that a successful ambush determines the result of the attack, because in a head-on skirmish the guy simply will not be able to defeat the warrior. But who knows? After all, he himself did not say that he would fight head-on, and then his sword would immediately become overgrown with green flowing mana while Y was still in the air, and was about to strike. Meanwhile, the recovered Wang jumps up, shouting that he has exactly the same skill as the demon. Call manages to block everything with his sword, from the blade of which the guy later pushes off, again ending up in the air. After landing, the opponent notices that the hero's sword is screaming. The gnome who warned him, whose iron will settle after a while, climbs into his memories again. Damn it, at such and such a moment. The killer reports with a grin that if so, then this time he will be much more serious, and then moves in his direction with quick and sharp jerks. Ghost sword strikes are fast and accurate, and the more it blocks, the stronger the opponent becomes. Short attacks without a break, and the movements of his own sword are limited. Moreover, Y is aware of the condition of his weapon, and he insistently strikes where it has weakened. We need to finish the battle before it breaks. With this one swing, Call will end the fight. The man swings for a blow that, in his opinion, can kill a new acquaintance, but the latter, noticing him in time, substitutes the tip of his blade, fueled by mana. The force of the joint was so strong that a cloud of smoke and dust rose all over the arena, and the magician almost flies away from the shock wave. He immediately shouts in the direction of the fighters, asking who won. But as soon as the smoke clears, you can immediately notice Kana, whose sword is broken by 3/4, while the other part rests on the ground. The man looks at his weapon while the teenagers immediately got excited when they saw this. Continuing to look at his sword, the blacksmith's words come back to Hyun's head that if he keeps such a sinister weapon with him, then others may suffer. His eyes instantly turn to the students, as if confirming someone else's words, while Y begins to laugh, saying that his weapon is just terrible, while his own begins to light up with a bright green aura again, and a crazy smile appears on his face. Cho, did he buy it in a store like thousands of little things? Meanwhile, in some abandoned Nissan Express building, there is a bound ranger with tape over his mouth. There are several buggies in front of him, one of whom tears off part of the scotch and brings fried gyoza to him, ordering him to eat, while the second one remarks with displeasure that they should just get rid of him. So why are they feeding him at all? The one holding the plate just snorts and replies that they are no longer a gang, but an entire guild. If they get rid of the kids for no reason, everything will become much more difficult. That's why the ghost sword was told not to touch this little one's team. Meanwhile, the teenager winces, intending to do something, but he is immediately stopped so that he does not even think about whistling. The man has already heard what he is capable of, although, even so, no one will hear him from here anyway. But then abruptly the door, which was behind them, breaks off its hinges, causing the buggies to fly away, and dark silhouettes appear in front of them in clouds of dust. In front of them there is a falconer angel with the 83rd rank, who yells, asking where his child is. The one who held the plate completely loses it, looking at the newcomer in amazement. Is this really the angel from the Black Deer Guild? How did they even find them if there are no security cameras here, and the criminals have covered all traces? But there is no need for security cameras, as they can see everything through the eyes of a falcon. Cook fucking blockheads the river. One of the gang immediately asks what they should do, since the man in front of them is a ranker. But as soon as he asks what it is, at the same moment, everyone from the Gurren Guild instantly jumps through the windows, fleeing from the crime scene. From behind the shoulder of the falconer also appears on Song Min, who looks after the fleeing while Jim's father tells them to leave them so that they know whose territory they are hunting. Kim with a smile reminds them that they came to save him. From that the man approaches him and immediately begins to untangle him from the captivity of the ropes, while the guy says that he himself is fine, but his friends and... Then it hit him like an electric shock. The old man is in danger. The rangers who came, of course, do not understand what kind of old man. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Kang is still looking at his broken sword before looking up at Y. He won't ask who sent him here, but he wants to ask about another thing, which is why the killer immediately stops. Why is he the target? Ghost Sword laughs awkwardly before saying that the man just ate someone else's lunch. Call succinctly replies I see before informing that this time he would not only eat his lunch, but also stand on the table, going on a rampage. Hong Seok immediately screams, asking what this terrifying mana is, while he continues to hold his barely alive friend while Simon looks at them with uncharacteristic silence. The blonde one starts laughing. Damn it, he knew that this man was hiding something, because he had alerted him from the very beginning. Is he even human? And what? Why himself would have believed if the hunter was a monster. The man takes a step forward, which makes the guy conclude that there is no need for questions anymore, and then squeezes his blade again. Why is he filled with a green aura, while someone else's weapon is wrapped in red mana? In any case, a broken sword won't scare him. The blades collide. Did Hyen replace the broken part with mana? How is this even possible? But at the same second, the brunette throws the opponent away in an instant, but with such force that he just crashes into a stone column, coughing up blood. This is even more absurd than he thought. That is why the ghost sword will fight in the dirtiest way possible. And isn't he ashamed to say that? And does Chol know what those who were stabbed by the killer in the heart said? You dirty bastard, you fight like an asshole. If we fought honestly, I would have won. Isn't it funny? And it should be a shame not for him at all, but for the one who lost. And it was at this moment that the guy throws dirt in the man's face with the toe of his shoe, which makes him immediately wince, having only time to notice how Y just disappeared from sight. And in the next second, the guy manages to touch someone else's leg with the blade of his blade. Too bad, because he was aiming at the Achilles tendon. Both blades collide again, because the ghost sword keeps attacking, while Kang repeatedly blocks the attack. But at some point, the blonde snaps his fingers, which is why the hunter immediately reacts to this sound, noticing that the opponent is back again, and then strikes. But the latter evades in time, saying that he has a good reaction, and then wonders if Hyen's ability improves feelings by type of hearing or vision, while he rummages in his bosom. And what if it is? He fishes out 4 colored balls, saying that he will block them one by one. Vision first. As soon as one of the balls hits the ground, the arena is instantly filled with clouds of smoke and dust, which immediately reduces visibility. Then the rumor. The killer turns out to be behind and stretches out his palm, which is filled with green mana, which soon jumps onto someone else's body, using the zone of silence. Indeed, Kang is immediately lost as soon as he realizes that he does not hear anything at all. Y just created a soundproof barrier around his body, but it seems that the hunter does not even hear him now. The blade of the blade slashed the skin again, which automatically makes the man turn around and try to strike back, but the ghost sword deftly dodges. Laughing, the killer disappears into the fog as quickly as he appeared recently. That bastard. Due to the fact that his hearing and vision are blocked, it is difficult even to dodge. But you need to stay calm. He can just use another of his senses, not hearing or sight. And as soon as the guy gets too close, intending to stab him in the side, the hunter immediately turns around and quickly blocks the blow, which makes the surprised blonde immediately jump back, wondering how he found him. Did his third eye open? But Hyan had told him from the very beginning that such a bad aura was too strong not to notice it. Y laughs, calling his opponent a wild beast, before saying that he is quite surprised. But why did he become so passive? And it looks like it's even difficult for him to stand. That is why the ghost sword will not pull and will give the long-awaited peace. To hold out for so long with a broken sword. Pretty amazing, but this is the end. And as soon as the guy is about to strike, an arrow is thrust into the ground between him and the man. What the? Rangers immediately appear on the side, led by Kim, who says that his mission failed. Teenagers are surprised as much as Kang, while the killer himself wants to find out how he got here in the first place. Jim just pulls back the bowstring again and says that the shooter always strikes the last blow.